This time I'd like to ask the Minister for Infrastructure who is responsible for disabled parking enforcement, A, during usual business hours, and B, outside those hours.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Department of Infrastructure and the Isle of Man Constabulary are both able to enforce the legislation that applies to disabled parking spaces. Regular weekday business hours and the weekend enforcement is undertaken by the Department's enforcement contractor. Outside these times, the Department undertakes out-of-hours enforcement on a targeted basis. This includes making checks in the evening and early morning. Of course, enforcement can be undertaken by police officers at any time. The Department has offered training and formal appointment in parking control to the island local authorities. Some have taken this up and carry out additional enforcement in their own areas based on the view of the local needs. Finally, car park operators can provide their own enforcement in their car parks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to thank the Minister for that answer. I wonder if he'd be able to confirm, he said this is operated under contract for the department. If he could confirm how many contractors there are, how many staff there are actually that operate in those evenings and weekends, those out-of-hours times, and where on the island they operate. The reason I'm asking this is from a Ramsey perspective. I've lived in Ramsey for quite some time. I don't think I've ever seen a parking enforcement officer around and about the town. So the question really is how many staff are on the ground actually enforcing, especially in relation to disabled parking bays.
Thank you, Mr. President. In essence, I can certainly try and supply that figure to you, but the really important point is this. Local authorities have taken on parking enforcement, so in the instance of Castletown, Peel, Port St Mary, and obviously they have much more flexibility to do it at the right time. That's something I believe that should be and could be done at local authorities, and I would certainly support, welcome them to ask for training to become parking controllers.
Allenson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to thank the Minister for his answer. Certainly from my experience, constituents who need disabled parking bays are extremely angry when they see able-bodied people parking there for no good reason. And I welcome his appeal to local authorities to take that on board. In terms of enforcement, though, would he also agree that part of his department's responsibility is to make sure that these bays are clearly signed so that they can be enforced? And unfortunately, too often, the actual markings are worn out, so it puts the police in a very difficult position to actually enforce these rules. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, you've hit on a raw nerve of mine. I'm very passionate about the fact that the need for clear marking, clear lining. It's something where I think we can schedule better, and perhaps on a 2-year basis that we make sure that the line is in place. So you've hit on very much a passion of mine, but I want to support.
Final supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. President. I really welcome the Minister's statement there that local authorities are able to take over this control. He did mention that training is available, but actually, is there a requirement to extend the powers of enforcement to those local authorities in respect of disabled parking bays, or does that already exist in some way? And really, how is he going to be reaching out to local authorities to roll this out more widely?
Thank you. The powers exist at the moment, and obviously, hopefully, they will hear this today, and obviously, we will engage through the Clerks Forum to try and encourage them to do that.